Welcome to Fighters Drinking Coffee. Today, we actually have a listener question from the Discord that we're going to use to kick off our conversation. And so, Scott, the process of going from student to teacher, like that was the question that came up. I thought it was a pretty good one. It got me thinking. So yeah, I mean, how would you kick us off? That like change of how did going from being like the student in the room, because we were actually both around the same time at Nova when this, like, it kind of hit both of us around the same time. We were both kind of just in the room learning for a bit, and then just kind of in transition. Some people left, some new people came in, and there was a kind of a gap. And so like what was it like going from like, oh, I'm just a guy in the room, I'm training, I'm here to train, and then now like, oh, like I'm the senior ranking member of like the grappling program, but also like now you are the coach of a lot of these people.
Yeah, dude. So interestingly, when we were training together at Nova, I was a purple belt, and I had actually started teaching as a blue belt in Lexington, Kentucky, where I'm from, before I moved to the DC area. And I started teaching as a blue belt, dude. And this was like back in the day when so I started training in 2005, and I got my blue belt after about like 20-ish months, like almost 2 years, like between 18 to 24 months, like the kind of the typical ish range for a blue belt. I think I may have had like maybe 1 or 2 stripes. I was like, it wasn't a brand new blue belt. I might have gotten up to like 3 to 4 stripes blue belt. So like on my way to purple belt. And this is interesting. I love this question, by the way. There's a lot I could say about this, so I'll try to like keep myself from ranting too much, but at the same time I will rant. Anyways,
Rant away.
I am. So I remember, I'm going to get to the question but I think it's relevant to share the background, because I was like, this was in 2005 and in Kentucky, it's not like a densely populated, high concentration of jiu-jitsu academies. That wasn't really in a lot of places in 2005 anyways, even maybe except for like maybe California, South Florida, New York. There were parts of the United States where there were quite a lot of people training. But in 2005, man, this sport was just like emerging in the United States as like a thing. So there were a couple good gyms in Kentucky. Like actually, we were punching above our weight class, perhaps is the phrase. We had really, I mean, shout out to Mike O'Donnell and the Carlson Gracie squad at Four Seasons MMA. Still love that gym. That's a conversation. That gym is legendary for a whole other set of reasons. We'll talk about it another time, but awesome gym. And Mike was nasty, and he was the first black belt in Kentucky. He's a business owner. And when he asked me to coach, which was really cool, I remember being like, wow, I felt pretty cool when he did that. I think looking at that perspective too, I mean, he's a business owner too, so I think he wanted like someone who would like show up on time, do a job. I mean, as a business owner, I relate a lot to that. And then obviously there's like the awareness and knowledge base and like, a little bit of personality. Like, how's this dude gonna be in front of my customers? You think you put all that together, plus like enough awareness, like he had watched me get promoted and watch my growth or whatever at that point. So there's a little bit of trust that was kind of neat to do. But dude, when I first started coaching, it was basically like, fuck, dude, I was a brand new coach. I didn't know. I mean, I'm being a little hard on myself. I didn't know a lot. I mean, I've been coaching now for 18 years, so I'd like to think I'm a much better coach now than I was then. But when you first start out, dude, it's like you just kind of show what you know. You just want to be like, all right, like what can I give? What value do I have to provide to these students? And my perspective has changed a lot to get to the real root of the question. But like I'm working my way back to Nova when I really began coaching and also taking it a bit more seriously because I wanted to get paid and like turn it into a career. So therefore I was like, all right, I got to think about providing a like actual, like I got to increase the value of what I'm doing for not just the members, but for the business owner. And then like, can I grow my skills as a coach? And then, by the way, like spoiler alert, a bunch of years later, I now own an academy and I teach a lot more people. So it's like, this is something I wanted to get better at doing is what I'm saying. But so like I taught in Kentucky for a while, got my purple belt there, kept on teaching, had a couple classes a week that were my classes. And moved up here and I stopped coaching because, I'm moving to a new area. I'm going to other gyms as a student, which I actually appreciated because I knew I needed to learn a lot more. And by the time we got to Nova and we were working with a few different folks who were coaching us, and the opportunities arose with the business owner of Nova at the time. She needed some help with staffing, and I was interested in picking up like side gigs. This was around the time in my career too, where I was like, fuck these office jobs. Like this is going to be like a slow, miserable death for me. So I have to find a way out. And I was like, all right, what are my interests? Do I have any marketable skills? What can I do to get paid? And I'm like, all right, jiu-jitsu, I do this shit all the time. I love this. Maybe I can start doing like get some gigs.
Yeah.
And then just scale that up. Like get paid a little bit. And so that was around the time when everything I just mentioned a moment ago, where I'm like, all right, like let me like become a bit more professional about how I do this and try to escalate my ability to provide that value for people. And we were also competing about it. That's commensurate with me wanting to be the better I am at the martial art, the more I will be able to provide perspective and value to people, which is ultimately what I'm going to get to on like the student to teacher thread. But anyways, man, like, I mean, this is like, me and you were linking up and we were training the shit ton together back then. We were doing remember 5:30 a.m. lifting sessions?
Oh, I mean, we would get up at
probably, I would get up at like 5, dude.
We would lift at like 5. We would lift at like 5:30, and then
do a little bit of training.
We would do a little bit of training, or like some days you would go to. I think. Well, no,
I would shower there.
We would do some wrestling. You would go.
We would even do some podcasting.
And
by
then,
the way.
We would do podcasting afterwards.
Get the hell out of
our
their
little studio.
Be at work by like 8:39 or something, dude.
Yeah, and some days after you would leave, I would roll with Sam Perdomo.
Yup. Shout out to Perdomo.
Yeah, he's
still going, dude.
He's a beast, dude.
He is. He's the man.
But yeah, I mean, we were fucking little mat demons because we
were on the mat a lot.
I mean, I worked at the gym.
Yep.
That was like my job. So working there was, being there wasn't as big a deal. But
well, and kind of like what my reaction to that, dude, is a lot like what I was just saying, where it's like you, like me, like we're both like the more time you're on the mat, the more you're soaking up expertise and knowledge. And you were also working a lot with like you were like doing privates and stuff, if I recall.
Yeah, I had privates like a lot of time. I'd finish with you. We'd finish training. Then a lot of time I'd either have a private right afterwards or I'd have one around lunchtime. Yeah, it was, around the same time you started, like we both started coaching there around the same time. I started a little bit. No, did you start at the old location too, coaching?
No, I started at the Quincy.
Cause I started filling
Quincy location.
I started filling in at the old like single level, the old smaller location, but not like I wasn't a full-time coach until we both started that around the same time
and that was another interesting thing too. Like again, like business perspective, I think the business owner, she was like, yo, I need people who are going to show up on time. Cause like jiu-jitsu people are kind of wild, man. Like they're not always reliable. I hate to say it, that it's just a fact. But I think that was one thing. He was like, we're both going to show up on time. We're going to do our job. And I think like ultimately she's like, you guys have like, you're ranked, you know more than I do. You're going to show up on time. Can you please come in and like teach these guys? I'm like, hey, you look like you know enough.
Yeah.
Being a little.
The cauliflower helped for me.
Totally. Well, but like to that point, man, and like this is like the ultimate thing I want to say about going from like student to teacher is that I think your perspective changes quite a bit when you're a student. And then I'll even add in like competitor too, because I think that path exposes you to like more of the depth of what's required to be good at the martial art, because the nature of competition requires you like under pressure to like actually understand what you're trying to do, and then you must do it or you lose. I think that we'll say like that plus being a student and the understanding of what the objective of the martial art is, transitioning the lens over to like now, if you have some level of understanding of that goal, then saying, all right, well, now I need to convey this to a room of people who have differing degrees of goals themselves. They may not all want to be competitors. They just want to learn it. They want to just pick up a skill for fun or whatever. Either way, everyone in the room just wants to understand and get better at the martial art. So whatever their perspective is, like those other roles that I'm alluding to, student and competitor, I think it just helps you get that like root of what we're trying to achieve in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or anything, MMA, you name it. And then when you have to teach it, you have to really think about, like, I think a teacher's job at its core is how can I make everybody in the room better at this martial art faster than I was? Like, I think our job is to think about all the mistakes and things we've learned. Like, how long did it take me to, I like talking about arm triangles because I've been teaching that move since Lexington, Kentucky. For like 18 years, we've been teaching the same move. And I like that because like a DMA, a lot of people know how to do it pretty well, in my opinion, which is cool because I've tried to track this one technique that I've been teaching for this many years, for almost 2 decades. And I asked myself, like, how quickly can I show someone who doesn't know anything about this martial art to figure this out in as short amount of time as possible, or at least get to be like some degree of competency. They're not going to figure it out right away, but get them to where they can do it in a shorter duration it took me to do it. Yeah. So it's like your dad. I don't know if it's, maybe there's a parallel to this, but it's like, hey, I want to teach these people who are paying me to learn a thing faster than I learned it.
Well, yeah, you want them to
avoid our mistakes.
Yeah, you want them to learn without having to
stumble through all the shit that we stumble through.
Yeah, you've already done the trialing and the failing and all of that. So you want to try to teach them in a way that they don't have to go through as much of that. Like, you're taking out all the stop gaps, all the troubleshooting. Because, like, I mean, heck, when we were, a lot of the stuff when we were learning it, at least for me, like, it was like, oh, this is the move, do it, right? Like, you didn't necessarily, because I mean, a lot of times we're just like, all right, what are we doing today? Like, because it was such like a in and out of instructors at the start that it was like, all right, well, we need to do something. It's like, well, today we're gonna do Kimuras, right? Let's all try to figure out a Kimura today, right? And like, because I mean, a lot of it, there were times where it was just like, all right, we're just gonna all just like show up and just fucking
bang,
yeah, just go. And so you're just trying to, like, you have to you know what the move is, you know what it looks like, and you have to troubleshoot it all the way through. And so yeah, you're trying to take that whole process out for these guys, because like we didn't have the person showing us the details all the time, right? Like, for stuff that we were trying to learn, because we had to be the ones to teach it. So we had to do all the troubleshooting. We had to build the technique around how we do it, find out all of our little details, all of our little like black magic jiu-jitsu tricks. And so like the goal, yeah, is to try to get them to not have to go through that process. And sometimes you do want them to go through, like, there are, especially for like eco nerds, like,
there's a discovery process that person has to have themselves.
Like, you can give them the tool, but like, you do need to also like, hey, you do need to figure out how to apply this, but like, let me go ahead and show you the tricks. But there is the difference when it's live versus now, right?
Dude, 1,000%. Like, so, I mean, on that point, like, this isn't like, jiu-jitsu isn't like some a priori,
yeah,
like learning process where like you just inherently know it. You don't inherently know it. You have to show them some technique and then be like, all right, now you got to give them enough framework and enough raw materials to then allow them to discover it. If you're just like, go do the position and they have no idea what they're supposed to do. I'm not saying that's what eco does necessarily, but like the point I think we're both saying is like, you got to give them some direction. And then, yes, I agree. You deploy them to then go and discover some of this themselves, because I do think that that's the best way to learn, which is just showing a technique and then leaving it at that. It'll get them on the path, but orienting like maybe drills or exercises to get them to connect the dots on how to implement this thing against some degree of resistance it's a really good way to learn.
Yeah,
so
especially with
little like, sidebar comment on like some eco, I guess. Yeah, since we're calling it that, I don't like calling it that.
No, CLA, I
whatever.
There's like all all that methods, shit, right? But like, not to shit on eco, but like I think it does depend on your audience. Just to bow up this sidebar real quick, I heard this tangent. I think the efficacy of the eco model probably depends a little bit on who your audience is. Like, I would say I do kind of like a CLA hybrid with the old, like, you know, show the move, drill the move thing, just because the guys that I'm coaching and like something, you know, let's fast track this learning like, I'm going to show you the thing and I'm going to make you do it in a live scenario.
You're doing both. You're doing both when you,
but you know, it's like, hey, like, we're not going to sit here and try to figure this out in the live scenario the whole time, because they all go to work immediately afterwards. They're going to forget all that shit. Like, I'm going to give you I'm going to give you one answer and then you can figure out some more answers. That's
Sure.
fine. But I want you to have something so you're not just both, hugging on the mat,
Just wandering around.
figuring it out.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah. Anyways, but well, but it's interesting. So like to your point, yeah, it definitely started off as like, hey, I got to teach I got to teach tonight. I got a 6:00 class or whatever, and I just got to show something. It goes from that to then having like, this is the journey of the instructor as the instructor improves, or perhaps like the job of the instructor changes. Like my job now is kind of building curriculums in a program. And this is like a bit of a shout out to Nakapan, who's talked about this from like a business perspective, a bunch on and he posts about this on Instagram. He does this with his business networking group, which is, you gotta have a program, not just a class. Mm-hmm. But that comes with time. Like, and when you start programming and like, is your scope goes from, I'm training 15 to 25 people in a class to like, now I'm still doing I'm doing that alongside of guiding like hundreds of members towards a system to teach them the big picture. And that comes with time. And so like for me, learning how to do that and continuing to learn how to do that, you have to have a vision for what the big picture, like what do you want these dudes to understand about jiu-jitsu? And a lot of times it gets down to like basic things. Doesn't mean it's easy, but basic things like you need to understand how to be defensive everywhere to then be capable of executing offense everywhere. This is like that's just an example, very simple. Doesn't mean easy because that'll take a long time. But like if you have a question like that or an objective, like this, I want everyone who signs up and does jiu-jitsu to start off being able to defend themselves and then eventually get good enough at doing that. And if they're not just trying to survive all the time, and when they're brand new, they will be trying to survive all the time. But that's a good way to like develop that defensive baseline. Once they got enough of that down, like when you're not on defense all the time, you actually have some gaps to then think about attacking people. And that's ultimately where we want to get people, because like as someone improves their skills, this like they want to become like a weapon, not just a target. So you get good enough defensively to then allow yourself to be offensive. Again, just using that example. But then you think about like, all right, throughout the year, how do we map out monthly, weekly, and then ultimately daily classes? And then you match that with a team of instructors, which like, for example, I have. This is way different than what we were doing back in Nova, because it was like me and you and like one or two other guys, and we were kind of disparate.
Yeah,
and
we weren't a couple.
We weren't super coordinated, but again, I wasn't in a position to think about these things at the time. Now I am with a bit more perspective and more experience. But you got to think about, how do you convey to your staff of coaches a unified objective throughout the year, the quarter, the month, down to the week, down to the day? Like, what are we all doing across our different classes with room for each coach to be unique and different? Because that's a really valuable thing about having a team of coaches, is like, we're not all going to do the exact same thing the exact same way, nor should we. We can all be working on the same thing. Like, I'll give you an example. Like in the month of May, my students will be working on mount and back mount primarily, with the most of the focus being on offense from those from those positions, balanced with a little bit of defense. Like the defense is never completely gone, but I'd say it's maybe like 75-25, maybe 80-20. It's thereabouts. The focus mostly being on offense, because we've been doing a lot of defense already. So now it's time to kind of shift that focus, but that's what we're doing for the month. Yeah, and every coach should, if they're listening, they should be sticking to that. Because, we're a team, and if we're all working on the same thing, it's going to be better for our students. But each of the coaches will get to do that in their own little way. I'm not going to micromanage how they do it. If someone, I will be overseeing, I will be popping in and checking stuff out. I will be watching you, but someone's making some like egregious error, like I also don't want to get in the way of my teachers, my teammates figuring out how to do their jobs better, because that discovery process applies to coaching too. Like you got to like learn, back to what I was saying earlier, where it's like, you got to like figure out, all right, and this is something I think about too. It's like, it like back to what you were saying about the classes, when you're talking about the eco thing versus like when me and you show up at 8 a.m. on a Saturday with a room full of people who are experienced. They benefit a lot from the ecosystem. Yeah. CLA, call it whatever you want, because they all have a baseline of pretty well developed knowledge. Therefore, we can get into specifics, some positionals, and work out stuff. And that discovery process is actually really valuable for people who have knowledge. White belts, on the other hand, if you're teaching that class, it's a lot different. Like, you got to feed them something. And then do what I usually do with my white belts too, because I teach all levels classes as well as advanced classes, and the all levels classes, I really like that class because I can keep it. But I'm trying to connect this, like, I want the teachers to understand the audience they're talking to and what that audience, like, what did you need when you were a white belt? Do you need, like, to be telling a white belt this really complicated, like, De La Hiva system? Probably not. Because they're white belts, and like you said, we're gonna after classes, they're gonna run off and like go to happy hour, eat dinner, watch TV or whatever. Like, they're not gonna remember all this complicated shit. So it's like give them white belt level stuff that's like, it's gonna be valuable. It's fairly easy to understand. People learn in different ways, but like, give them something simple, give them a takeaway. I think less is more. A lot of times, like, give them 1 to 2 things that we think are simple. Maybe they're still kind of overwhelmed by, but as long as they keep showing up, like, you want to make them feel like they're getting parts of it. If you're giving them something too complicated, you might be over their head. That might demoralize them. They might think to themselves, like, this is too complex. I don't know this shit. Am I not smart enough to do it?
That, or you end up with, they have this lexicon of advanced moves, but they don't have a way to, like, they don't not even put it in. They don't know how to fit it into the game. So they have all these like advanced moves. But
I think there's a big problem with like people, because like you see like big name coaches out there trying to like sound like intellectuals a lot of times. Like, I don't think trying to sound complicated and smart shows that you're smart. It's just in anything. I've been teaching and coaching sports truly for over 20 years. I coached swimming. I've done a bunch of stuff. I've been in a lot of coaching roles. Like, keep it simple. The way to mastery is being able to explain something complicated in a really simple way that someone can learn quickly. If you can do that, now you're getting onto it. It's not like going on a podcast and like trying to sound like really cool, like really smart. It's not. Like, you just sound like arrogant and like egotistical and like an intellectual nerd, which, an arrogant intellectual nerd. Intellectual nerds rule, but like arrogant intellectual nerds, that's another thing. It just comes off as like, all right, self-aggrandizing. Like, I get it. Yeah. You think you're awesome. No, it's transparent. People see it and they don't like it. But anyways, it works on some people. If like you like running a cult, like some people really like getting into that cult of personality thing. It's a whole other conversation. But I don't think that you need to do that. I think you just need to be like, hey, like, I have a job to do. The job isn't to promote myself. My job is like sound awesome in a public setting. You can maybe get a little bit of that. Like, it's to get the white belts in the room, give them something simple. Like, they should objectively be growing. And so, anyways, the last point on that topic with the all levels classes, what I like to do is like, I show them 1 or 2 things. I do it relatively quickly. I go around and make sure that they're at least getting progress on that. And if you have a room of like 30 people, like, some people will get it quickly, some people will get it slowly, some people will be in the middle. And then you go and deploy them in drills. So you can connect it. That there is that value of the drilling game, CLA or whatever, learning method that I think you can combine both. And you let them play a little bit, man. Like, these people are paying customers. They'll have them go out and do some rounds. They want to sweat. They want to work out.
Yeah, at the end of the day, a lot of these guys, this is probably a good portion of the non-competitive people. Like, a lot of your people are doing it as a hobby or recreationally. Like, this might be their workout, And it's like, I always try to take that into account. Like, hey, like, yeah, learning's cool, but like, at the end of the day, this might be the only exercise they get. Maybe twice a week.
They got to sweat.
And so like they are paying to do this for more than just knowledge a lot of the time.
Well, and to that point though, too, like the going out and rolling around, however you want to, I've done classes where I've had them like positionally roll, which is a little bit of both. And it's both an exercise and it's both educational at the same time. So you can do that. Last thing on this too is you made a comment about like some of those guys aren't going to be competitors, which is another thing to think about too. Like, when you're in that teaching perspective, you got to ask yourself, this just goes back to like, know your customer, know your audience. Like, what are they looking for? And so again, back to the curriculum and like system thing, when you think about building something for a big group of people, like, what's something everyone, whether they're a competitor or like a non-competitor, what would they all benefit from? And usually if everyone benefits from the same thing, because you have to start thinking about this stuff in scale. It's not like, what does Mike, the guy who's fighting in a month, need? Or am I going to go into a white belt class and teach a class based around what the purple belts need? Or can I teach something? I think this is the challenge, and it can be another mastery thing. If you can figure out a way to structure a class that everyone from white belt up to like purple, brown, black can come in and get some value out of it. Like, I think that's more sophisticated than like trying to go in and like split an atom in a class.
Yeah. I mean,
because I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah. So like we we're not like a major at Battlefield. We're not a major competition school. Like we are mostly recreational, but we have in the classes that I both attend and teach. So like the time of day that I'm there coaching, right now I'm and out of the coaching arc just because I'm competing. And so we will do like intensive camps essentially when we have the local IBJJFs coming up because more people compete in that out of the gym than like in the other stuff. So we have a large portion of the gym all competing at the same time, right? So like it's easy to be like, all right, we can be a little more zoned in on this.
And occasionally too, I think the non-competitors, they like that too.
Oh yeah.
They want to be around like, and so that's a cool culture to be a part of.
We design it in a way that like, we're not just, we're not only gonna do hard rounds and stuff like that. Like you have to take into account like, all right, we have half the room is competing, the other half isn't, or, a lot of time that other half is kind of new. And so it's like, all right, half the room's competing. We need to make sure that we structure this in a way that those guys are getting what they need, but we're not either turning these other people into just nails or boring them with just, endless positional or, stuff where they feel like they're not getting what they are looking for. And actually someone made a comment in class about this and I was like, yeah, shit, dude, like it's like, hey man, like I should be, if you are feeling like, oh man, like I'm not gonna learn anything for the next 10 weeks. Like, that's on me. I need to fix that for you. Right. It's like, all right, let's adjust this in a way. So like, we'll do what I'm trying to do right now. And it's different than what we did for the last one. So we're doing 10 weeks and we're doing blocks. So we'll do like 15-minute blocks. Like, all right, we do 15 minutes stand up. Some weeks we'll probably do the entire thing stand up, but entire class stand up. But it's like, all right, we're gonna do 15 minutes of kind of stand up work in a format where like, hey, we're getting our heart pumping, but we're also like, we're going to try to get the heart pumping, but at the same time, we're going to be reaching goals. So we create like, all right, we're going to do hand fighting. Your goal is to achieve one of these 3 grips. And then we're going to go into takedowns starting from one of those 3 grips. And so like, we're creating the pathway for them. And then we end up, they're looking for a goal to achieve. So they are still learning something. And this is just CLA eco stuff, but we're making it very like, we're tightening it up a lot. But then, then we go into our rounds. It's like, we're doing the positional, but at the end of it, what I'm trying to do is, I'm in the mix of this, but like, I'm trying to watch and then, like we're rotating a lot. So I get to feel everybody. And at the end of it, it's like, all right, hey, like, everybody did a great job. You all worked really hard. Here's some things I noticed from everyone in the room. Like, here's some things to address. And so that way they're still getting instruction. They feel like they're learning something. And like, I'm not teaching you a move, but I'm teaching you.
You kind of are, though.
I'm correcting, this week I put them a lot of half guard. Been really focusing on like that half guard chest to chest for people. And I was like, hey, like a lot of you are like trying to pin with your arms, like get your head involved. Like you're all being really heavy on the hips. That's when you're going to get swept. Let's get heavy up top. We need to pin them. We don't need to sit on their hips anymore. We're most of the way past those hips. So like, I'm trying to get away. We're put in a way where like, all right, we're going to go intense for these 45 minutes. And then I'll do this show you guys this stuff real quick. And then we're going to roll. So that way they're getting some instruction, like trying to make a way to hybridize like what would be fundamental versus like competition, because it's split in the room. Like not everybody's competing in July. So I need to make sure that I have something that touches both of them.
What you're describing right there is like you took the time as a coach to think about, it's everything we just discussed, really. You're like, all right, I've got a diverse room of people who are regular students and some dudes who are competing in about 10 weeks or whatever. What can I do? And by the way, like to build up what you're saying, I'd say if I heard you correctly, like one of the classes was like, hey, this is the hand fighting system we're going to do. Try to get one of these 3 objectives. The next practice or exercise or drill or whatever in that class is then like practice it, try to like actually execute it, and follow up with a live sparring or whatever, where like, again, you're kind of doing that. You've actually given them a lot of instructions there. Dude, for some new people, that is technique. I think when you get to when you've become quite experienced and knowledgeable in this, like you tend to underestimate how valuable little things like our lens might think like, well, I haven't even been teaching. To someone who's not as experienced as you in that same class, and there will be people there, they might be thinking, well, shit, man, that's actually a lot. And this goes back to what I was saying, where it's like newer people don't need a ton of shit.
Well, I guess
simple is good, dude.
It's a branch off of what they're used to learning, right?
I get it.
Is like,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're saying.
So I mean, a lot of I try.
It's different than being like, we're going to be doing the 3 submissions from whatever.
Yeah.
Rep it 15 times each. All right, go spar.
Yeah.
It is different than that. But what I would just say, like, because I think that's a good exercise for you as a coach, and what you just described, where you thought about like, hey, I want to do something that's valuable for everyone, so everyone wins.
Yeah.
In this class, competitor or not. And I think you did. Because, like I said, like that one thing might be plenty of contact. Like, I mean, dude, like students aren't likely to come up to you and tell you like, I didn't learn any. They're not going to come up and say, dude, that was too much shit.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they will. Maybe like, I mean, if you have someone who's really honest with you, like that's good feedback. But I think there's probably a whole shitload of people in that room, and like you've basically built like a little exercise that's super valuable for competitors, but the new people are learning it too.
Yeah.
They might say, dude, that was all I really needed. That was good. It's hard. And I learned something. It wasn't 15 things. And I walk away kind of feeling self-conscious because I only remember half of a technique. Because people got to absorb all this shit. It's a lot at one time. So 1 or 2 things. Hey, like we're going to do, you got a collar tie, arm, Russian to arm drag, Russian to whatever. And like, they might be like, all right, nice, cool. Can we please stop there? Like, they might be thinking that. They might be like, dude, that's plenty. There are so many days when I think that. And I've been doing this for 20 years where I'm like, yo, I just need 2 things. Particularly like in wrestling or whatever. Like when there's like, or jiu-jitsu too. Like I'll go to seminars where I'll hear like 50 things and they're all really badass. But I'm like, in my head, I'm like, all right, if I can walk out of here with 2 actionable things that I understand and can actually execute and I'm capable of practicing it,
you're like,
that's all I need.
You're like, bro,
that's the return on my investment.
What do I take out of this?
Yeah, for real.
That's kind of funny that I was talking to somebody, and we'll actually get to some more of the actual question, but so I was talking to somebody.
Talking about the actual question? We are talking about the actual question.
I have certain things that I wanted to.
Yeah. Lay it out, dude.
I want to touch this first. It's kind of funny you bring up like that, like that like grab bag of moves.
I call it a data dump. It's a big data dump.
With somebody, and he's like, yeah, like he just got his purple belt, so shout out to him. But like he was like, yeah, man, like I get to like a position, and like I'm like sitting there like trying to decide what to do, and I'm like, yeah, you just know too much, like, know less shit. Like,
seriously.
Like, pick one thing from that position.
Mm-hmm.
That is what you're doing. Like, and I explained to him, and like, this goes back to the Nova days. Cause like, it was get through the guard, Kimura, right? That was always like, our system was all built off of that initial Kimura grip, trying to go dorsal with it. And then everything just opens up from there. Kind of getting into, almost into like Kimura and stuff like that. But like, it's like, dude, like pick a grip that you are confident holding and like just get to that grip. And then you'll see the stuff after that, right? Like, but if when you get into, as you're passing, you're like, what do? I have all these options. You're not going to do any of them. You're going to run out of time. Like, you got to just get there and do something. So like, yeah, there's a downside to knowing too many moves, but not having a decision, right? Like, you got to have like anchor points in your game, and then everything is about getting from anchor point to anchor point. But yeah, I mean, so like, I think that's cool stuff. But like, because I have an answer for this, but I want to start with you, because I think because I got to watch like progression wise. Once you started going deeper and deep, like the deeper you got into coaching. How do you think that affected your, like, how did you have to adapt the way that you practiced, like the way that your training was, and how do you think it affected your progression? Because I think that's kind of like the core of what the question kind of gets down to, is like, outside of just our transition from student to teacher, right? There's also how did you change as a practitioner, and like, what was that process like? Was there a period of time where like you felt like you were starting to lose your progression? How did you adapt to that? And like, do you think ultimately it was it lengthened it or shortened like your time in terms of like, cause you were at the end of your purple belt, right? When we started like really coaching at Nova.
Mhm.
Is that right? Yeah. Trying to make sure my timeline in my head.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, so yeah, like progression wise and all of that, how do you think that transition from teacher or student to teacher like changed that?
Yeah. Okay. That was a big question, but the progression. Okay, so I mean, I think I've somewhat touched on a little bit of that, which I guess my mind goes to when I start teaching, and this connects back to like, all right, if I want to like take this as a professional thing, like why am I showing someone what I'm showing them?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my reaction to that and my overall attitude when I teach is I want to show people stuff that works, that I know works. And I had the progression is relevant to that because I had to basically find that answer myself. I think the biggest thing about like being a teacher is like when a little bit of your job is to kind of like entertain and engage people for sure. But your job is to help them learn how to do this stuff. And so you really start thinking about like, hey, if I have 50 minutes to an hour where I have these people of differing experience levels, attention, what's the value of what I'm showing them? Like, what am I trying to, it goes a little bit back to the curriculum thing too. Like, where am I trying to lead this person? And it really does force you to think about that. And it's like, you have to ask yourself, like, do I actually know the answer myself? So this is where like becoming a teacher, it does make you a better practitioner because you have to answer questions that you definitely don't think about when you're just a student. You have to have those answers. And so it makes you better. It's like, why am I doing this? How does it really work? What am I actually trying to achieve? Why am I trying to achieve it? That's a little bit of what I was saying where it's like you have a goal. The goal is like, I want to get these guys defensive first, then offensive later. I'm using an example. And maybe that is my answer on what I'm ultimately trying to do for people at like a, like, let's say like a newer level, white to blue to purple belt level. At that phase, like if it all kind of connects together, it's like, all right, I have 50 minutes. I want these guys to learn a basic principle. I therefore need to understand that basic principle. I need to know why that principle is relevant and be able to explain it in as few words as possible. Again, this is not like my seminar to sit here and like sound really cool to people and, what is it, like puff my chest? Yeah, puff my chest on how smart I am at jiu-jitsu.
Peacocking.
Yeah, quit peacocking and just like be able to explain like maybe one or two sentences why something's really important. Show them how to do it as simply as possible. I love the chest-to-chest example because like, you're right, there's a million times. This I think also connects to being a competitor too. Like when you're a competitor, you have to take stuff that's really complicated because there's like a million decisions you can make when you're in jiu-jitsu matches. And like if you have a 5-minute match, you have to have an answer to the question you're talking about. Like, when I get to half guard knee shield, I know what I'm going to do because I can't sit here and stall out for 35 seconds pondering all of the multitude of options because there is a shitload of options. So you're like, I basically get here and I try to crash my chest into their chest. Simple is good.
Yeah.
So I just like it as an example of like how to like systematize your instruction because you're like taking a room of people who are all wondering the same thing you're wondering too. They're overwhelmed by this stuff. And you just basically go and you're like, hey, you know what's really important when you're attacking half guard? You want to be forward action oriented so the person on the bottom doesn't attack you. And so when you're here, you can't stall out. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get past this knee shield or whatever, the leg we'll get past the barriers, put our pressure on them, weigh on them so we can then move forward. And that just keeps us on offense. And it means we're not a target. Now we're a weapon. Yeah. Bang. Couple sentences. I explained why we're doing a thing. All right, here's how we're going to do it. Try to do this in as few words as possible. The knee comes up. I circumvent my way around the knee and I drive my core in. I get a good grip so I can drive all my weight onto that person. Bang. That's the technique. You show it one or two times, ask everyone if they need to see it again. Someone will raise their hand. You show it another time. And then at a certain point when I'm teaching, I have to cut off questions because I'm like, hey, like we can do questions all day. I need you all to actually do this. I'll budget one or two. Then I'm like, all right, bang, we got to keep this show going because the meter's running, man.
Yeah.
Because I want them to spar. I want them to do other things. So you got to like, as a teacher, you got to like keep people, you have to think about, that's like a really interesting thing too. We've talked about this in other episodes. The economy of the time you have with people. So let's make it a good class. Make sure that there's time for them to spar, but show them that, get them doing it. You're opening the door. They're not going to master these moves with your 6 minutes of instruction you budget in like a 50 to 60 minute class. So you're very intentional about these things and simple is fucking good, dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, I think the quest to be a really valuable instructor for as many different types of students as possible makes you much better as a practitioner.
Yeah, I was gonna agree with that. Because I was gonna say I think that the more I was teaching, the better my jujitsu got. I think there was skepticism going into it of like, oh, am I gonna stall out because I'm just showing my stuff? But I started paying more attention to every single thing I was doing, like especially when I was rolling. Like a lot of the time I was prepping for the next class by rolling. So I'd be studying what I was doing. And so it'd be like, all right, like, oh, I'm going for this thing. What little details are important here? And like, oh, well, when I get this grip, if I turn my wrist this way, then that makes it a hell of a lot tighter. And then that gives me more leverage. Or if I shift my hips out, like now I have more leverage on his shoulder. And like, I started to really notice all these little tiny things. And then it started to make my jujitsu less moves and more just like, or less looking for a specific move and more just mechanics. Like it became like, oh, well, like I know that the mechanic of the armbar just, or of turning this person, I just need, these are the controls I need. I need control of the shoulder. I need control of the head, and I need I need control of the end of the lever, and that creates extension in the arm. Like that can be, I can apply that in more than just the traditional position of how you learn armbar, right? Like, so like, I think it gave me more answers and kind of made my game more fluid. So it goes from like I went from less than methodically looking for a move to like, things just kind of appear and you just have them because you know how things move, you know what little tricks and details. And so like I think it's sped my progression up a lot. I mean, I got my purple belt in like 3 years. Mm-hmm. So but I think that like progression from blue to purple was a lot faster because of that. Now I'm like purple for a while because stuff stalls
stop
out.
Training and you start training again.
But like, I think that I would say that like I started to learn more by teaching and coaching, and like, one, you see how everybody else does things and it starts to tighten up your game because you have to figure out how like, oh, well, I get away with doing it this way, but like, oh, that didn't work for them. So like, I need to adjust this. And then like, it actually happened recently too. I was like, oh, well, like this is how I do this sweep. And then the big guy's like, well, that doesn't work for me. I'm like, oh, like, I guess I need to figure out how to make it work for these big guys. But so you have to, it does make your game better. It made my game better because I had to think about more of that like stuff than how I get away with jujitsu, and more of, oh, well, like this is how these moves have to work. Here's the details that are important here. Versus just like, oh, well, I just throw my leg over and I do this and then I've done the move. Like it's vastly different when you have to explain it to someone. And so, yeah, I think that's how I feel.
Yeah. Well, and last thing I'll say, it's like you're just on the point of making you better too. Like you're teaching your teammates to be better, like training partners for you too. And it's a pretty like, every teacher who's listening to this in martial arts definitely, I think, will resonate with this, which is like you show all your homies like your best moves and then they stop kind of working because now they all know it.
Yeah.
So it forces you to constantly be adapting. Like you're basically just going to be like, you're just pulling your hog out and you're like, this is what my dick and balls look like. Here's all my shit. Here's my best moves. Go do it, guys. And then your best moves stop, but they understand it. Some of them understand it better than you do.
Yeah, you're so like, shit, was I not good at that move?
well, one of two things can happen. You either get better at it,
mm-hmm.
and you get better at executing the stuff that you know that they know because you showed it, or you adapt. You do something different. Like
you realize
you have
really
to.
Wasn't your move in the first place.
Well, it's everyone's move now.
Well, I mean, like you realize that like you were. So sometimes you realize you were getting away with it, and not like it's like, oh, like I actually need to be better at that move.
It forces you to be better, though. That's to your point. Like it definitely, like you have to become a better practitioner.
We talked about that with Andrea briefly.
She brought it up yesterday. Yeah.
So that was. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And like, don't be afraid to show your move. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, that's weird. And like, that's very like, that's like selfish.
I mean, it's just, it's like, it's okay to be, when you're a competitor and stuff, it's okay to be a little selfish, but, obviously not too selfish.
I know what you mean.
You do want, you can selfishly show it to them to make yourself better.
You can have both.
Yeah.
You can have your cake and eat it too.
What's the more important thing, beating your students in the gym or getting better at jiu-jitsu and winning on the mat?
Well, that's the answer.
Like
that's why competing is like how you do in a gym.
Like,
not that there's anything that's not really the goal.
No, you should be losing in the gym.
Yeah, well, and like, I mean,
if it makes you better, like,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, if you have like most people who come in there have some kind of competitive nature to them, and it's naturally a competitive thing because basically it's a sport of trying to beat someone at fighting.
Yeah.
So like that just no one wants to just get beat at fighting. Everyone's trying to win.
But gym rounds don't matter.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is like,
no, I get it.
The gym there's no record.
It means nothing. It means nothing. You're right. There's no like in the gym, like it means nothing.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, it's still training. It's valuable to go do that, but it's not, I
mean, you should want to win, but
yeah, totally. Everyone does want to win. But like the way to like the way that I think what you're talking about is like, I mean, like when you're training versus competing, like you gotta, if you want to learn, eventually you have to continue the process of discovery, which means you have to try different things as a practitioner. And so on the training mat, that's where you do these things. And if you avoid doing that because you want to win every round, not that you can't try something new with the intent to win, but you got to be willing to like fail to learn the new thing, which means you might lose a position. You might lose a point. You might get submitted by a guy that you're like, I usually beat this guy. Like, you have to ask yourself if you really give a shit at how like, is it your ego so fragile that you're like, I need this guy to know that I can always beat him?
Yeah.
You know what? And that goes back to like, what are you doing? Why are we doing this? Whatever.
I want all of my training partners to be a hard round. Like, that's where I want them to end up. Like, I want them to be giving me a tough time every class.
I just said the last thing
that's my goal as a coach,
right?
Well, like,
I get it. Yes, it is. And the final thing I'll say about this is kind of like I want to shout out to capitalism. Like, what are you getting paid to do? What is your actual job? Is your job to get into a room of people and beat them up to feel cool, to make sure that everyone knows you're the number one guy? Or is your job to be, you could probably still do a lot of that if you're a good teacher too, but you can also, your job is to make them all better. And you have to believe that makes you better, but you have to do your goddamn job. These people are paying money.
Yeah.
They're taking, it's not just paying money, but they're paying money and then taking the hour or sometimes more a day to show up. They want to get better too. So it's like, you got to think about what's good for them. And it ultimately will be good for you too. The beauty of capitalism is like, you have to be, if you want to be a competitive business, which means you have to think about all the minutiae of all these things are really important. Like, it's complicated. Capitalism is complicated. And being a competitive, and I don't mean like literally going on the mat to compete. It could be that, but just being a competitive business, providing the best value for as many people as possible. You got to think about this shit. And the beauty of all that is like, I think you can achieve all of these things at the exact same time. You have to ask these questions. You have to really know, what am I here to do? Why is that good for them? Why is that good for me? What am I trying to do for myself? What are my individual goals? What are my team goals? Like, these things can all be mutually aligned towards true north.
Yeah.
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 So, I mean, so just kind of give a couple key takeaways for you guys, just so, like the progression, how getting other people better makes you better. The better you are as a coach, like the way we have some good little things, some good takeaways for how to be a better coach through programming, knowing your audience. But then also, there's some ego that you have to deal with as a coach as well.
You have to see, the thing about the ego thing is it applies to lots of things. You got to, that's the more you embrace suppressing it, the better you're going to be in every level as the individual competitor and as the coach.
Because at the end of the day, making your students better is what causes you to become better as well, not just as a coach, but also as a practitioner in the sport.
And as a human being.
And as a person.
Yeah. Think about someone else for a second.
Thinking about other people is good.
Think about someone else for a second.
But, so that's what we have time for today, guys, on this one. So thank you again for listening to Fighters Drinking Coffee. Remember to hop on that Discord. As you can see, this is straight where we pulled this topic from. We had some good questions on there. This was one of them, and we're like, oh, I can't give you guys this question in a Q&A. I'm gonna have to pull it up here, put it on the podcast
just
itself.
listen in, Discord.
Yeah,
People.
so I'll have to make sure they know. But so, hop on there. Like, we're checking that stuff, and as it grows, the more interactive it'll become too. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Fighters Drinking Coffee, and rate, review, follow the podcast wherever you're listening. A 5-star rating helps us out. That helps us get more listeners, puts us up higher in the algorithm. The more ratings we're getting, better it is. You can comment, tell us you hate us, don't care. Just put 5 stars alongside that comment telling us how bad we are. And then we're still working on some cool value adds for you guys. So we'll have some stuff coming up in the near future is the plan, to hopefully give you guys some more Fighters Drinking Coffee content, but also, some additional ways for you guys to support the podcast, and keep this thing going for you guys. So, thanks again. Bye.
Bye.